cumulative set of things came all over me. Was the ugly truth of pharma, was the fact that I was doing something that I didn't like, was the fact that the context was tough and I didn't know how to impose barriers. So many of the typical things, which brought me into a kind of a critical moment, which they call dark period of the soul. And so my health was kind of the tipping point. And from there, I started kind of like with this knowing inside of this, there's another way. I started kind of like looking for that other way, which I really didn't know what it was. But, you know, with a little bit of toughness and going and always reminding me of that, I started like getting connections with different people. And the first trigger was like actually a psychic medium that I was handed in the most random of circumstances. And I decided to give it a try. And all up to that moment, I never really have thought about spirituality or anything rather than the material, rational, engineer, because it's my degree, kind of like reality that I had been living, you know. And when I went there, one advantage of mine was that kind of like with that background, my logic was, let's say, straight. And when she told me the things she told me, I immediately knew that everything they had told me in my life was a lie. So it was that kind of revealing. And I didn't need to use the heart, or I didn't need to use anything but pure logic. And so if she could tell me these things about when I was a little kid, about my parents, about the fact that, you know, she even told me, you know, these salaries are not for you. And I knew that already when I came to Switzerland. She said, like, you're not made for these kind of things. This is not for you. And so when she said me all this, I was like, okay, let's start like a beginner again, because I know absolutely nothing about life. And that's where, you know, I started, for me, because I had started with the health situation, I needed to put a lot of focus on nutrition and on the anatomical level. And, you know, that created a kind of a purification effect in my body. And that is how I started connecting with the subtle energies. And so not too long ago, so in January 2019, I started playing with a pendulum. And at the beginning, I thought, okay, this is curious. Let's give it a try. I have nothing to lose. And then it kind of started coming information such as Edgar Cayce readings. And so it started addressing a lot of kind of trapped emotions. I mean, remedies such as you look at an emerald crystal in this kind of way, sitting in this fashion when the sun is inside and in this way. I mean, it was completely crazy. I didn't have that knowledge, at least in conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing all that. And then eventually I connected with my guardian angel. That was around 4 months after that. So we're talking about a year ago. And then that was kind of very, very powerful, because I started being guided basically 24/7. And with that guidance, I started like trusting, well, I would not say completely, because trust completely is difficult, but let's say 99%. And that trust allowed me to kind of take very, very bold decisions and very, very bold opportunities. So I connected around October, November with my higher self, and they started telling me kind of like, you know, very crazy things about attunement, about dimensions, about all these sort of things that for me were kind of like music to my ears, because I really didn't understand too much when they were telling me. And that basically awakened a lot of psychic powers and cities. So yeah, so basically, I mean, I would end up being able to talk. I mean, I would say the other way around. So trees would communicate with me, crystals would communicate with me. I mean, river even would teach me lessons. So it's all that. And then I developed kind of other psychic methods. For me, a very, very big drive of mine was to teach others. It has always been. And so every time I was receiving this kind of, which I call gifts, which are only, and I always say to myself that they only come when there's a pure intention and I can do good to others. So it's not, look what I can do, you know, because sometimes we're prone to say that, you know. And I always, every time I would receive one of these gifts, I would say, how can I teach it to others, you know? And so that started happening. And so part of my adventure was to kind of like go out in the ground, I say, and, you know, perhaps I go to a supermarket and I teach to a lady that I know nothing about. And then she comes with this, aha, this is incredible. And it's kind of all these that I do. And, it's a little bit kind of chaotic the way I'm explaining it, but basically, if you guys have any knowledge of Drunvalo Melchizedek,
Yep.
I always say that the lifestyle that he describes is kind of what I've been living in the last year, because somehow the universe made it in a way that all the chaos that had happened out of my last employer turned out into a kind of like me being in social help out of unemployment. But, I'm qualified, but at the same time, nobody would hire me. So I need to say that, the universe is kind of like stepping in between. So I kind of evolve in the spiritual part. So whether it is that or not, I really don't care. I try to do the best at every moment. And so far I'm in this context. I'm doing fine, trying to help as many people as I can, but I don't have any kind of official kind of like healer or tag of that sort. I mean, I've healed people. Part of my journey is also on the anatomical level. So I'm kind of extending too much, Jill. Is this okay, or?
Well, Miguel, first of all, I want to say thank you to you, because you do add a lot to the 4am group. So you are in your own way healing people already.
Okay.
So your explanation, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, you're from a different level, buddy. Like, seriously, okay? Like, it's stuff I don't get, but it's amazing. So you keep, and I'm getting pure goosebumps. So it's pure confirmation from my spirits that you are on the right track. So just keep going, okay? And you've got this. You're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. So thank you for sharing. And I'm sure we could all chat to one another for like the rest of the night.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, but thank you. Thank you so much. So we're going to take this over to Jill. And Jilly, what's your path been? When did you first start speaking to Dominus and Aurelius? When did they start coming through to you? When did your spirituality kick into your world?
Well, not as amazing as Miguel. She was like, woo. Wow, when did that happen? Gosh, going to be 62 this year, so a very long time ago. Max was a baby, and I had gone to somebody for some advice, and she said to me, I can't give you this advice anymore because you can do this yourself. And I said, absolutely impossible. And she said, look, I'm going to teach you how to. And she said, get a book and a pen and go to a quiet place and just start asking questions. She said it's called automatic writing. And I'd never heard anything like that. Or she said, you can just sit at your computer and do the same thing. So I made sure that Greg and the boys went away skiing for the weekend. Off you go. And then I sat in front of the computer and I said, who's there? And it was absolutely nothing. And I got the giggles. And then I said, okay, get a grip. And then I said, what is your name? And it just came Aurelius. And then I asked different little questions, like, is there anything that I should not eat? And it just came in sorghum, sugar beets, lactose. I thought, wow, what the hell is sorghum? I don't know what sorghum is. So that was my affirmation that, yep, this is not your imagination, because you don't even know that word. And then I didn't even know Dominus, didn't know Dominus existed, and slowly started building up a relationship with Aurelius and asking more and more questions, until eventually in 2010, I was introduced to Dominus when I thought I was having a stroke, and I started speaking weirdly. Well, guess what, guys? On Thursday this week, I had a session with Blair Styra called Tabash, who I went to Peru with. And at the very end of the session, just stepping back, just over the past few days, sort of like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I felt that somebody was touching my face and just sort of doing this very gently. Now, when I had a session with Alba Weinman, when I was hypnotized, I used to always feel something on the top of my head, like actually as if something was there. And I asked her in the session, what is it that I feel? And she said, those are your guides saying, good job, and saying hello. And then suddenly this, from here, just doing like that. And then Tabash said, oh, Jill, there's a new energy that's just come in, and he's been assimilating into your energy because he's going to be a new guide. And he specifically is going to be working with your physiology. So not all guides do exactly the same thing. And he said, because you are mind, body, and spirit. And he said, your spirit side is really well developed. But if you're going to be doing this work that they want you to do, your body has to be strong. Your actual physiology has to be streamlined. So he said his name's...
Do you know what he meant by that?
What, the body?
Yeah. What was his reason behind that?
Well, I've been eating a lot of rubbish, although I tell everybody not to. So I have biscuits with my tea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, immediately afterwards, after the session, I boiled the kettle and grabbed the biscuits out and turned them over to look at the sugar content. I've never done that before. And there were 3 different types of biscuits. And 2 of them had 4 grams per serving, and the one biscuit had 1 gram. So I thought, okay, James, I'm only taking the gram. Look at me, aren't I good? So suddenly it sort of made me aware. And now it feels like he's sitting here going, do you think that's a good idea?
Mm. Yeah.
So it's like being accountable to somebody. Isn't it ridiculous? Yeah. And then immediately afterwards, I started channeling James, and the energy was completely different.
Okay. So how did you know, and how did you trust your guides? Because this is something that I think so many people, so many of us, it's about the trusting. It's about the information that's coming through. So that you made that connection with your beautiful writing. And where to from there? How did your trust grow with them?
Because they've never, ever given me anything that's negative. Everything's positive. Everything is uplifting. Everything is increasing my knowledge. You know, they woke me up in the middle of the night repeating a name over and over and saying white poison and the name. Eventually at 3 a.m, I thought, all right. And then I'd get up and I'd turn on the computer and I'd actually type in the person's name, and the next minute it came out, it says white poison, and it speaks about aspartame or aspartame, you know, that artificial sugar.
Mm. Mm.
Now, I don't know this person. I've never heard of this person. I didn't even know a person like that exists.
Mm.
So those are all the things that sort of layer and layer and layer. And then you go, okay, this can't be my imagination. Too many things happen and affirm it that it's like, yep, this is real. This has got to be real.
So Angela has a phenomenal question with regards to automatic writing. And I hope you don't mind, Julie, that we're going to go straight into the questions that are coming.
Go for it, whatever, I'm open.
Okay. How do individuals start? Okay, so you got the guidance of going to go sit, get rid of your family. How do you know?
Okay, so this is exactly what Glenda said to me, and I thought as well, there's no way I can do it. I'm just a housewife, I've got little boys, I'm very busy, I don't know about things like that, it's not going to work for me. It's all very well for these clairvoyant medium types. They all, you know, tapped in, turned on, switched on, and I just followed her instructions. So you have to take the busyness away. You have to take the distractions away and be with yourself. And then don't have expectations and write things like, am I a boy, when you know that you're a girl, and you'll get that kind of feeling. Am I married? And then it'll be yes. Have I got 7 children? No. And then slowly start very slowly with yes, no questions.
So
And
asking
just let
simple
it flow.
questions. So
Just
asking
little
simple questions. Okay. All right.
Just ask questions. And you might think it's your imagination, but it'll just start. And when I started for the first time, I got maybe 4 answers. Now, pages.
So would you think it's letting go of the expectation of having so much information come through? Like you say, it's just maybe starting with a few questions and then allowing those few questions to come through or to be answered and then building it up. As I would say it's probably like meditation, building it up slowly but surely on a regular basis. What would you
I don't know, because I still don't think I can really meditate, but apparently I can, but I still think I'm not quite sure about the meditation thing.
Okay, so going back to, so for those of you who don't know, Jill is a hypnotherapist and she's a phenomenal hypnotherapist. So do Dominus and Aurelius come through in your sessions when you are working with clients?
I think actually they must do, because things are happening in my sessions, right? So there's not one session that's the same. Every single session just sort of goes towards one particular person, and it takes a little life all of its own. So one person might come and they've got their list of questions. I always make sure that I weave that into everything. But then it's almost like I get this wisdom that I know is not Jill Cole. And I find it coming out of my mouth, a specific question. And I think, where on earth did that question come from? But it opens up almost like a Pandora's box of so many other layers for that particular person. And they're questions that that person didn't even ask. And yet it's what they needed to know. And it's not that I knew that that's what they needed to know. It's almost like it's guided. And I think if you have that ability and you have your guides, which we all do anyway, all of us do. So all the hypnotherapists and anybody doing this work will have their guides, and it'll be coming through, I'm sure.
So for those of us who are still connecting or learning to connect to our guides, okay, other than automatic writing, how would you know that you are talking to your guides?
For me, it happens in the weirdest way, right? Okay, so it'll be like, okay, so this happened a Saturday night. I said to Greg, something's wrong. I feel discombobulated. I can't put my finger on it, but I don't feel right. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, I feel sick to the pit of my stomach. Something's not right. In the morning, he said to me, do you still feel like that? I said, yes. And a friend of mine was coming to meet me, and we were going out into the country to meet a chap that makes steel benches and like steel bench tops. And she wanted one to serve ice cream at a shop that she has. And I suddenly got a feeling that there was something wrong with my car. So we got in the car, we drove 2 kilometers. I pulled over next to the rugby club and I got out and I said to her, could you please get out the car and just walk around it and see if you can see anything wrong with the car? And she said, oh, did you hear something? I said, no. So we walked around the car. We both looked at each other and we laughed because it's like, what do girls know about a car? Looks fine to me. We got back in the car. We took off. I was doing 100 and a voice in my head said, put your foot on the brakes now. And I didn't hesitate to follow those instructions. But you can't just put your foot on the brake because the car's going to actually go crazy. So I just went, ooh, gently, right down to about 30. With that, she turned and looked at me and she said to me, has the car lost power? So I said, no. And then there was an almighty explosion. And the car was pulled right down into the gully on the side. And when we got out, the back tire had shredded right down to the metal. So that's how they spoke to me then, right? Another way, I was driving through the valley and it was a bluebird day, and then a cloud appeared out of nowhere and started writing J-O-Y right across the sky. And I said, oh, big deal. Joy. Everybody knows joy. I mean, that's like so like every day. And they said, no, 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 no. Just own yourself. And then they gave me an entire lesson on what that means. So you see how it comes in so many different ways?
So for the ladies or the people that are here that perhaps have done the course with you, and they're not 100% sure how to connect with their guides, would you say it's similar to the intuition that comes? Because I think so often people get so confused. Is it our intuition? Is it our guides? Like that voice inside your head, okay? You got that voice, okay? Was that Dominus and Aurelius? Was it Dom? Was it Aura? Who was it? Okay, was it your intuition? How do people connect if they're only just starting out?
You know what? I think they've just got to ask. I think they've got to say, I'm ready to work with you guys now. Won't you please come in and assist me? Because they can't just come in unless you give permission, right? I'm ready to work now. And suddenly little things will start to happen. And it doesn't just happen like instant coffee, you know what I mean? Maybe you've got to percolate it for a bit to get the good brew.
And connecting to your guides, would that make your, or everybody that is, that are hypnotherapists here, would that make these sessions easier, would you say?
Oh, absolutely, because you've got such an amazing assistant and assistants.
Mm.
But
So,
everybody's got a higher self.
Sure.
You know? So it's once again going into themselves.
Yeah.
And just being that quiet, just listening. And that's when I want to tell them all about the sacred day, because that's going to get them connected. Okay. So they're just telling me now. Tell them about the sacred day with the journals.
Mm-hmm.
This is a chance for them to get connected.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, some of you might have heard of this before. And recently I had a client that I discussed this with, and they also said to me to teach my son. So they said, get 2 books, 2 journals, right? Little jotters, notebooks. They want humanity to make a date with themselves, 1 day a month. So it's only 12 days a year to actually make sacred time for yourself. Then they want you to take those 2 books in a little backpack or basket, whatever you want to take, into nature. They want you to take water, and they want you to take lunch. No cell phone. If you take cell phone, it's got to be off. No music, no friends, just yourself. Because now you are communicating with you, with your higher self. And they said in 1 book, they want you to write down everything that you've got. In other words, not, I've got a Lamborghini and a new Gucci scarf. You've got to say, I have got eyes. Oh my gosh, it means I can see and write on this page. I have got fingers that can hold the pen and feed myself and hold the steering wheel and love somebody and even brush my own teeth. Oh, actually, I've got kidneys and I'm not on dialysis, which means I can travel long distances because I don't have to get hooked up on a machine. I've got warmth, I've got friends, you know. So it's all the things that you have and that you're grateful for. In the other book, they want you to write what it is you still desire. And we're not talking about, once again, like a Lamborghini and everything. It's about, I need more courage. Can you please give me more confidence? I need to be a better friend so that I can have more friends.
So you're saying
Can you help me to find my voice? That kind of thing.
so it's not making it materialistic things.
Not at all.
How we can grow as individuals.
And what it does, Michelle, is it gives you time to stop in your busy life and realize firstly what you really, really have rather than what you don't have, and what it is you still strive for, like new opportunities, and be a strong leader and help in the society or whatever it is that you wish to do, right? And they said within 6 months, a pattern will emerge because you've given your voice time to listen to yourself. Instead of talking out, you're talking in, and that's when you start your connection. And then it just grows and gets bigger and bigger. And because your frequency starts changing, because you're actually concentrating on a different level of being, then things just start coming to you because you are literally starting to climb onto a different wavelength.
So Jilly, is it possible that you've said, was that DNA that was talking to you right now, where you said that you wanted to share that story with us?
Well, they interrupted me because I was going to say something else, and it was like, don't even go there. Just, this is now pertinent. This is the way to show them.
Okay, so has that become like your automatic writing? Like literally you tune into that and it just becomes the most natural way to go.
And when I went to Peru, something completely different happened when I was in the lobby and just started seeing things like in a video. Boom. So I haven't really seen that before.
So would you say that every time, like even your Peru trip, would you like to tell us a little bit about that and what it was as an experience for you? I think Nicole, I think, might have been to Peru. Is anybody else who's been to Peru yet? Belinda? Okay. So what was it like for you going in your group? What did you experience? What was it like being in that energy?
Wow. It was, you know what? I had absolutely no expectations going to Peru, and especially because I hurt my heel before I went there, and I thought there's no way I'm climbing up the 189,000 million steps in Machu Picchu. How the hell is this ever going to happen? And there were 8 of us from the course, so at least we knew somebody, and we went to Lima first, and that was absolutely fabulous. And then we went to Cusco, into this ancient village in this little pension. And then we met all the others. And I'd say most of us had done the course with Antonia and Alba. And it was almost like a homecoming, when you go and see family you haven't seen for a long time and it's Christmas. And it's hot and it's just comfortable, so comfortable. And then the weirdest shit started happening. So on that very first night, we were all in the lobby, meeting each other, and I was just looking at the new people, because all of them are different, right? And I was sitting down in the corner, and suddenly she says, Jill, what are you looking at? What do you see? And I'm thinking, what on earth is she talking about? Because I actually was seeing something, and that's the first time that it happened. And I said to her, it's a juggernaut. It's actually a spaceship, but it is so enormous. And it's in the shape of a hand grenade. And in the front, it's got a cog. And in each little groove of the cog are ankhs. You know, an ankh or an ankh, the ancient Egyptian symbol with the triangle and the sort of thing at the top and then the bar through it. And they told me that those are your keys of light, or your light keys, and they got us.
When you talk about they, are you talking about Dominus and Aurelius? When you talk about they, sorry to interrupt.
I'm assuming.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you see, so whether it's my higher self or Dominus and Aurelius, I don't know. But it was like watching a video. And they made me put made me put the ankh, because I was showing Alba what I was doing. And it had to be at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. As the ankhs went in, they all had to be balanced. And then they said that all of us in that group that are in that spaceship, that's like our headquarters, and we are light beings, and those are like our lightsabers, and that's where they stored. And then we go off to all parts of the globe and hold the light bearers in that area. And it was like war headquarters, like we are fighting for the souls of humanity, and we there as a group. Well, guess what happened? That was on the Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember. On the Saturday, we had what's called a gathering, where Alba had people from all over coming into the hotel, and there were 50 of us, and a lot of other ones we didn't know, and she had a meditation. Now, the ankh had only come up that first time. I'd never been into the ankh as such, and 3 of the girls went to the exact same meditation, were in each other's meditation in Egypt, and the one said, oh, by the way, you and you were fiddling with my mouth, and the other one said, yes, we were putting the ankh in your mouth. And then afterwards they did research and found out that in ancient Egypt, actually you did put the ankhs in the pharaoh's mouth. Now, I've never heard 3 people having exactly the same meditation in that exact same room in Egypt and knowing what each other are doing, which is phenomenal. And now Belinda, who's with me now, Belinda and I shared a room in Lima, and the night before we went to Cusco, I was woken up at 3 in the morning and I was told, the serpent is rising. The serpent is rising. The serpent is rising. The serpent has risen 3 times. So over coffee, I said, Belinda, what do you think it means? So this is how it comes, right? I remember I said sometimes they give me words in the middle of the night. And I knew those words were important, and you've got to write them down, because you think so often you're going to remember them and often you don't. And you think, why didn't I write them down?
Have you taught yourself to actually wake up and write them down?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great, great teaching, I think, because you're right. So many of us do. We're like, oh, okay, I'm going to remember that in the morning. And we actually don't.
And sometimes it's such infinite wisdom, and you think, why didn't I ever think of it before? And then there's no way I'm going to forget that. And in the morning it's a blank, right? And then you go, why didn't I write it down? So Belinda and I were trying to work out what it could mean, and we were looking up the things of the Incas, and it was the condor and the puma and the serpent. We thought, that's it, that's the serpent. Well, guess what? Afterwards, one of the other girls started reading a book. I think, Miguel, it was with Melchizedek and everything, the light serpent or something like that. And she said,
Secret of the Ouroboros.
What was it?
The secret of the light serpent. You're right. Yes.
Yeah. Light serpent.
Yeah.
And what happened was, she got back to her city, and she said that what it said was every 13,000 years, it's called the serpent of light. And it emerges from the center of the earth, and it travels over a planet, and it settles somewhere, and it stays there then for 13,000 years. And the last place it was in the Himalayas and India and Tibet, that whole area. And that's why there was so much wisdom, and all in the 60s and everything, there was such a surge of spirituality. And now it's gone to the Andes and Peru. And we found out that the Dalai Lama then asked to actually go with his followers and live right up in the Andes in that area. So obviously he's onto something, right? And then when our group went to these ancient archaeological parks, call it parks, ancient ruins. And then I started channeling, and I hadn't done that. And I just went in and my eyes closed, and I just started speaking to whoever, which was not Dominus and Aurelius. It was a totally different feeling.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you there because it is on our 4IM group. And for those of you who go and watch it, you'll actually see, for me, before I even watched Jill channel, you could see she was an old, wise soul. Like who I was like, oh my God, Peru's done nothing good for Jill. She looks so old right now. And then I clicked on the video and I was like, she's channeling. And you can see it's such an old soul that is coming through her, with all the gratitude that you were giving to the land. If I can remember, that's what it was about, I think.
It was crazy.
Magnificent. Yeah, magnificent. So it is, if you'll have to go, I mean, when were you in Peru again? February? No, March? Yeah. So if you go onto our private group and go and look for it, if it's of any interest to you. Did you know what you were saying or giving thanks for after you?
You know what? It felt like I was the high priest asking the gods to be benevolent to my people for the harvest. And I remembered one of the words, and I actually wrote it down when I got in the bus, because afterwards we ran like hell for the bus, and there were only 5 of us there in this tiny little group. And afterwards, when I looked it up in Google, it actually said that it was a Sumerian goddess of the harvest. I'm thinking, how weird is, there's just so many little things, right? And then a few days later, we went to another big archaeological park, and this time, wow, I tell you, my mouth opened and you would swear that I could lead the All Blacks. The voice that came out of my mouth was so masculine, so strong, like a roar. And I couldn't control it. I didn't know that I could control it. That's something else as well, right? And then I turned around and I faced our group, and I went from person to person, giving every one of them a message in this weird language. How the hell are they supposed to understand it? Heaven alone knows. But they said they did.
So have you been able to channel again since then?
Well,
since coming back?
When I got onto the bus then I walked alongside Blair Stara, who does all this channeling for years. And I asked him who on earth that was that I was channeling the first day. And he said, that's your team, the angelic realm. And I said, well, the energy was very different when I was giving the message to everybody. Who was that? And he said, Archangel Michael. And I've never been an angel girl or anything like that. So I was thinking, well, that's a bit weird, right? But when we got onto the bus to go up to Machu Picchu, he walked up to me and he said to me, we're not allowed to do any channeling on Machu Picchu because it's so sacred. They'll kick us off. And I said to him, yes, but I'm not like you. This is new for me. And that just happened to me. How am I supposed to stop it? He says, Jill, you in control? You just tell them, not now. He said, you can feel it when it comes on now, right? Yes? I said, yes, because it happened twice. I knew the feeling. And he said, if you feel that coming, just say, now's not allowed. So when I got on the bus and they had these big windows overhead, you could see all the trees and the foliage and everything, and the mountains are right there. And I felt it coming on again. And I thought, oh my word. So I said, no chaps, no, it's not allowed. And they said to me, we want you to look up, look for the caves. There are 2 caves. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and then I saw these 2 huge dark openings. And they said to me, that is an alien base. They live in this mountain and in other very remote mountains on your planet. And they actually feed off the spiritual energy that those people that come that are on such high energy for Machu Picchu. And they said, but it's okay because your team is protected.
Mm.
So although they didn't channel, they then spoke to me.
And have you had this situation, or have you been able to speak light language coming back to New Zealand? And if so, for those of us who perhaps don't know how to speak light language, it's something that I think can be quite a shock to some people, because you sort of go, oh, what, where does that come from? Like you said, but how do you trust? How do you know? What guidance can you give to those of us who have not or are not speaking light language at this moment?
I don't even know if it's light language. I don't know what it's called. And
what's your sense? What was your sense? Like, how did your friend know that it was Archangel Michael? Did you?
Because he's totally tuned in, and that's what he does.
Oh,
so some of us have got like different gifts.
Okay.
So I don't think it matters whether you channel or whether you don't channel, whether you're a Reiki healer, whether you do what you do. Every single one of us does something different. It doesn't make, and you know, James, Jesus's brother that just came through on Thursday, what did he say that was so beautiful? He said, people who don't have your knowledge think perhaps that they may be less than. He said, not at all. He said, because there will be the knowledge bearers and there will be the receivers. But a knowledge bearer and a teacher can't be a teacher unless they have a pupil. So it's the most beautiful symbiotic relationship. So I've learned, those of us that are in the forefront this time round, next time we'll come back, we may well be the support crew. It's just like a beautiful dance. So it's never that one is better than another or inferior. If it happens to somebody, it happens to somebody. And I actually said, why did that happen to me in Peru? What was the point if I didn't even understand the language? And I was told by my guides, we were clearing your pipes, getting you ready for the main event. Like when a car's been in storage for a long time and you put your foot on the petrol, vroom, 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 right? So they said, we're just getting your voice box ready. I actually asked Tabash on Thursday, so what is the main event? And he said, this is the main event. Right now, we are living through the main event. This is now the time for teaching. In just a normal, down-to-earth way.
So being a hypnotherapist, you work with past lives.
Yes.
In Peru, did you feel like you had been there in a past life or many past lives?
Definitely. And those people that we were with really felt, and things happened there where a few of the girls went into the cave. One girl said, oh my gosh, look at that hand coming out for us. And the other girl said, never mind the hand, look at this blood everywhere. And the third girl, who phoned me 2 days ago from New Orleans, said to me, I couldn't even go in the cave because there were so many souls there that had been murdered and sacrificed in that cave. And I didn't even go in the cave. I was right up on the top. I didn't even know there was a cave there. And then something happened. And I said to somebody, because I don't want to tell their story, and I said, oh my gosh, there was a big rock with a split in the cave. And it happened in the cave and it was sacrifices. And they said, that's correct. And I was the one doing the sacrifices. So do you see how everybody was sort of...
So do you think, because I know you personally, I mean, you came back and you were so sick when you came back. And do you think that being there in that past life that you had that energy that still needed to be released when you came back here because your body took it on?
You know, for the people that are listening, there are some that were with me at that gathering, and it was very traumatic because although I'm chatting to everybody now, this is not something that I usually do. I put myself out of my comfort zone by even starting this whole 4 a.m. with you guys and doing it. And usually very private and definitely not showing emotion in public. And there I was with these complete strangers, and we did a meditation, and we had to open 3 doors. When I tell you, I started wailing like a crazy woman, like somebody who had her entire family murdered. And I couldn't stop myself. And it was coming from the absolute raw, terrible spot. And it just went on like a siren. And I thought, I'm disturbing everybody's meditation. And then Tabash walked over and he put his hands and he said, it's okay, and slowly worked through it. And he said that what that was a clearing of life upon life upon life, of trauma after trauma, and just clearing and clearing. And I thought, wow. So I had all that. I had my foot that was giving me jippo, so trying to keep up with everybody. I then had the clearing of the pipes. I think and my mind was going, so much was happening, and we were so loving each other that we would talk until crazy time, and then we'd be up at 3 a.m. traveling somewhere. We didn't have any sleep. We were exhausted. So, and I'd been go, even before I got there. So I think it was just a case of my body clearing everything out and going, you know what, we need to get rid of all the dross in order to make way for the new. That's what I think.
I've seen with doing integrative quantum medicine, I've seen how our cells remember, our spirit remembers. I've seen the most profound healings happen when we started going into past lives, not even knowing. It's the feeling that comes up in a person's body, and all of a sudden somebody in the group will say, I feel like I'm drowning. And then whatever group they're in, they'll notice that they were all in the same car, or they were all in the same ship, or whatever. And my question to you is, do you think that working with past lives is important? And so how do you in your hypnotherapy work with past lives? What kind of understandings does it bring? Like, I know from my perspective, yeah. So like that's my question around Peru as well, is like, I was wondering if you had really cleared so much of the energy of being in that traumatic experience, and you'd brought it back with you, but your body still, like, one of the things I know to be true for me is our body takes a while to come back to, you know, spiritually we get things, but our physical humanness can take a little bit longer to catch up. So that was what I was wondering. But how do you see working with past lives in your clients? How does it benefit them?
Well, you know, I think when I came back, now I'm getting quite emotional. This is amazing. I think I was grieving the loss of the family that I'd reconnected with such a long time ago. This is like a soul family. I mean, I came back and I sobbed like a baby. I've never done that in my life. It was just like the most heart-wrenching loss. You know, like, how can I be separated from them? These people, my family, that actually get me and understand me, where you can just be you, you know, there's no judgment. It was just the most beautiful experience. So getting back to the hypnosis, I'll give it to you about a client I had. This client came in very, very ill, and she had been repeatedly raped by her father from a little girl. And her father's still alive, right? So this whole trauma, as one lady said to me the other day, when you have got an issue, it settles in your tissues. An issue with the tissues, right? Meaning your actual physical tissues in your body, not something that you blow your nose with. And I said to her guide, please show her a past life pertinent to this one. Do you know that it took her into the 1700s, where she was an officer in India, married with a little girl. And in those years, when you worked in the British Army and you had to go into the hinterland, you went for years. There were no planes and trains or whatever. You went on elephant or horse, or you walked. By the time he got back to be with his wife and his little girl, the wife couldn't wait. The wife went and got a new man in her life. And my client was devastated. So I said to the client, so what did you do? Did you find yourself a new relationship? And she said, no, I turned to books and women. So I said, and was there anybody special with the women? Absolutely not. I totally used and abused them. When she, and there was quite a few other things, when she came out of it, her face, you should have seen her face. And she said to me, oh, and we did a healing with her father. And although he's still alive, we got him to come through on a spiritual level. And she lent her mouth to her father. And they had a conversation. The father had absolutely no idea really what he had done, a very complicated situation. And she got the chance to speak to her father for the first time and tell him exactly how it had affected her. When he realized what he had done, he just broke down. And this is her conveying it. He couldn't apologize enough. He was absolutely mortified. She ended up forgiving him. So the hypnosis I do is a process of forgiveness so that people don't hold on to that, so that they do not get ill in their cells and hold that residue of really sick energy. So when she came out, she said to me, oh my God, Jill, do you know what I did to those women was worse and the same as what my father did to me. And she said, how can I even judge him when I did such terrible things myself? She said, you know what, it's almost like it balances it out. It's like you choose to experience something, you are the perpetrator, and then you're the receiver. And she said, I actually forgive him. And she said, I'm not even holding that anymore. I just can't believe it. I had to see that to understand. That is how healing it is. You don't know where it's going to go or what's happened and what they're carrying through in that whole structure. It's incredible.
So doesn't it make us all wonder as healers what the hell we've done in past lives to come out and be healers now in this lifetime? Like, do we want to know? I don't.
The giver and the receiver.
Exactly. So, Julie, just ending off, you have a book that you are busy writing. We have a few minutes left. And when is it coming out? Are you going to be putting it on Amazon? Is it going to be a hard copy? What is it about?
Okay, so it's called My Invisible Friend. I actually had a hypnosis session in 2017, and Alba said, you're going to be writing this book called My Invisible Friend, and the second book that you're going to be writing is called Are You the Queen of Your Life, or Are You Just a Princess? And I ended up writing it in 2.5 months and didn't do anything with it, and realized that it was just channeled, because as I was writing it, one day I got up to make a cup of tea. And when I came back, I picked it up to start reading it, to get back into it. And it said, we would like to say, and I thought, whoa, where's the other Jill here? Oh, this is being channeled. So that's why it went so quickly. But I couldn't understand why it was taking a long time to do anything about, just getting it proofread and getting it sent away. Until I had what could you call it? When you lie down and you just, maybe you call that meditation. Okay, maybe that's meditation. And I was just being quiet and grounding myself and doing a little protection thing, because I never do. And then I was told maybe this is a good idea. So I was being a good girl. And suddenly I saw all these things happening, and a school teacher and all these little kids. And then when I came out of it, they said, that's the introduction to your book. Write it down now. And it was amazing. I couldn't even have dreamt of doing that myself, but I did dream it. So, and then Peru, because the hypnosis was what unlocked that whole new journey, which is incredible. It will do it for everybody differently. It's magnificent. I'm using Peru as the final chapter, and the things that happened to the people in Peru, they've written to me, and they've given me their little story. So I think it's very apt that Alba unlocked me for the very first part of this journey, and Peru is like the crown. So, and in it, I speak about all the automatic writing. I tell all the different things that have happened and encourage and show people how to do things for themselves. So this year it's coming out, and I think I'm going to do it in Amazon, so it's highly affordable for everybody.
Wonderful, wonderful. So does anybody have any questions? I know that the questions have been coming through from myself, Tony and Jill. We are so, so honored that all of you join us in 4IAM and add your comments. And, you know, it's all about being open-hearted. What did you say, Jill? We just, you know, it's a beautiful platform, and we highly recommend, and we love seeing the comments that you're all putting out there and helping each other to grow, because that's why Jill started and brought us together. And I, for one, you know, when I met Tony and Jill, I still remember thinking and saying to myself in my head, like, oh my God, like, how am I going to cope with this? And it's just grown organically. It's grown beautifully with such open-hearted, amazing people. And Jill, you are one of them. You know, I can't say enough gratitude to you and Tony, because it's something that I always remember that my mom said to me many, many years ago. And I get a little bit teary even saying this, that if I had to die tomorrow and I had 5 good friends around my bed, I would have the most blessed life. And I can honestly say that Tony and Jill would be 2 of those people. I'm sure they'd both be having their say, like their last say, because between the 3 of us, we've all got something to say. But such heart-based, just heart-based. We love our group, and we are so privileged that you have all joined us tonight.
And you know, Michelle, I've just thought, after looking at
last say, she had to have the last say, you see. This is how it goes, people.
But I look at all the faces and the people in our group, and I think it's almost like we need to have mini 20-minute interviews with them, so that everybody else gets to know who we've got as part of this group. Because everybody's different and everybody's got something to offer. I don't want it to be about Michelle, Tony, and Jill. I want it to be about all of us. Yeah, it's.
So Lily's come up with a really great question. How do people reach your services, my services, 4IAM? Because it is growing. And, you know, Jilly, this is your night, so you go ahead and tell us what you are doing to grow you.
Well, I think everybody can contact us with 4IAM. I mean, my email is really easy. It's my name and where I live, JILL, Jill Wanica @gmail.com. But I think they can get can't they get us on Messenger on Earth 4IAM and they see us?
Yes, I think that also, you know, what we've, and I'm hoping that this might just help people understand a little bit more, is that individually, even though Tony, myself, and Jill have come together, we still individually do our own group work, our own work. And that's what we've agreed upon, is that we're using 4IAM for future sessions or future workshops going around New Zealand and helping people unlock their blocks.
As a team, and then we do stuff individually.
And individually, Jill does her work, I do my work, Tony does his work. So my suggestion would be that we actually put individual things up on the 4IAM group as
Like
to
contacts
connect with us.
and what we do.
Otherwise, Facebook Messenger would be a different way of getting hold of us individually. But
Michelle, quickly tell them what you do, because you have a range of services.
Jilly, this is about you, my friend. So
No, it doesn't matter. We're all in it together, so go for it.
I know, but I'm going to leave this for because it's your night, because this is what you do. You're the most amazing person, and you always want to make it about everybody else. And I love you for that, but my turn will come again. Okay, so thank you. I really appreciate it, and I love you very, very much.
Guys, you all need to contact me to find out what Michelle does. So let me tell you, it's life-changing.
She had to have the last say. Had to, even though I'm interviewing her. But you see,
Thanks, Michelle.
but Angela's just said her guides just patted her on her head. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, Angela.
And Tamati, you are part of our beautiful soul family, my friend. Just beautiful. I look forward to seeing you and hugging your teddy bear heart that you have. And so we all just feel so grateful that each and every one of you have taken the time to join us tonight. And